Kate, the Future Queen, by Kate Nicholl. Chapter 9. Princess in the Making. Kate was still coming to terms with William's about turn. It was late October 2008, and they had flown to Scotland for some downtime. William had recently completed an exhilarating charity motorbike ride across Africa with his brother, so this was the first opportunity he and Kate had to spend some time together. He knew that his decision to join the RAF affected hugely on Kate's life and that she needed some reassurance. The reality was that William would train for 18 months, and after that he would be expected to serve with the Search and Rescue Force for a minimum of 2 years. He would be based at the Defence Helicopter Flying School in Shawbury, Shropshire, for a year before being posted to a remote base somewhere in the United Kingdom. The question was hanging: was Kate prepared to join him? She supported his desires and ambitions, but privately she was crushed. Essentially, William was asking her to be an army wife, without the nuptials. Her frustration was understandable. She had loyally supported William ever since he enrolled at Sandhurst, but the pact they had made in Des Roches suggested that his military training was coming to an end and marriage would be the next step. Now that he was joining the RAF, Kate could see that he would be married to his job for several more years. William was optimistic that he and Kate could make the relationship work. They had coped successfully with long periods apart before. Kate knew there was no point in trying to change William's mind. He was strong-willed and determined. At 26 years old, the prince was not too young to marry or become a working royal, but he didn't want to commit to either just yet. At the same age, the Queen had already been married for 5 years and had ascended the throne following the death of her father. Charles had given up his career as a naval officer when he was 27, 5 years before he married Diana, to devote his life to official duties. William, however, had been allowed a very different upbringing. Both Charles and Diana had wanted to raise their sons as ordinary, within the confines of royal protocol, and as they grew into young men, William and Harry worked hard to pursue careers independently of their Her Royal Highness, His Royal Highness, titles. The military gave William the chance to live a normal life outside of the bubble of royalty, which was about the most important thing to him. The idea of flying Sea King helicopters to rescue ships or mountain hikers in distress was, for the prince, the epitome of this privilege. For Kate, it was a step backward. It seemed that everyone was getting married except for her. Just days before William had made his announcement, they had flown to Austria for their friend Chiara Hunt's wedding. Her best friend, Emilia Dierlinger, was engaged to her long-term boyfriend, David Jardine Patterson, and Ollie Baker, their friend from St Andrews University, had recently proposed to his university sweetheart, Mel Nicholson. William and Kate's former apartment mate Fergus Boyd was getting married to Sandrine Janet the following May, and William and Kate had accepted an invitation to Nicholas Van Cutsam's wedding to Alice Haddon Patton in the summer. As she neared her 27th birthday, Kate's plan to be married with children by the time she was 30 was looking increasingly unlikely. And it wasn't just Kate who was unsettled about the future. Carol was also jittery about the absence of a ring on her daughter's finger. Carol is very concerned that it might not happen, revealed a friend. She is concerned about Kate's position and that there might not be a wedding at all. Kate had promised William in Des Roches that she would stand by him, and she wasn't about to go back on her word. When she attended Charles's 60th birthday party at Highgrove that same month, it was a clear indication that despite William's unexpected career decision, she was sticking with her prince. Days after the party, William was posted to Barbados to spend 10 days with the special boat service. While William spent Christmas at the royal estate in Norfolk, Kate and her family flew to Mustique as they had the year before. It was Kate's third visit that year, causing the press to christen her the Queen of Mustique, a title once reserved for Princess Margaret. On the island, the Middletons were treated like royalty. It was their second trip as a family, and they knew many of the local residents, including the tennis coach, Richard Schaefer, and the island's yoga instructor, Greg Allen, who came to teach them on the terrace of their villa every morning. According to Greg's partner, Elizabeth Saint, who took the family horse riding on the beach, they loved to ride, and Greg did yoga with them on a daily basis. He went to their house and taught them there. They love Mustique, and on the island everyone is very protective of them. They walk on the beach in their flip-flops, play tennis, and do their yoga. They don't want people hassling them and taking their pictures. In the privacy of the luxury villa, Kate and her family relaxed and enjoyed the services of the in-house chef. One source who enjoyed a supper with them recalled, there was always lots of chilled white wine, Carol's favorite drink. They are amazing hosts and enjoyed having a big table of people for dinner. They quickly made friends in Mustique, and it was always an open house. They are a lot of fun, and they aren't afraid to poke fun at themselves. One of Carol's favorite dinner party jokes is to put on her best air hostess voice and announce incoming flights as they come in. It had everyone in fits of giggles. Kate was home in time to go to Scotland to see the new year in, and this time she and William stayed with Charles and Camilla at Birkhall. Kate had helped Charles choose a Labrador puppy for William's Christmas present, and the four of them spent many happy hours traipsing over the hills with the energetic pup in tow. They were back in England in time for Kate's 27th birthday, a small celebration at her family home. William drove to Oakacre, where Ella, the newest addition to the Middleton family, a sweet black cocker spaniel puppy belonging to James, was bounding excitedly around the kitchen. Unusually, the prince had arranged to stay the night, so his protection officers booked into a nearby guest house. It was the last time he and Kate would be together before he moved to RAF Shawberry. On January 11, 2009, Flight Lieutenant Wales drove himself to the Defence Helicopter Flying School in Shropshire, 3 hours from London. After a couple of weeks living at the base, which had far from luxurious living quarters, he moved to a nearby farmhouse on the grounds of a stately home, prompting comments that William was being given special treatment. The Ministry of Defence, however, insisted that he was being treated like any other officer. Very few of his fellow officers, however, were living in such luxury. Complete with a tennis court and an outdoor pool, the farmhouse was a more comfortable option when Kate visited, and there was a bedroom for Harry, who had just split up with Chelsea and was being posted to the same base to train with the Army Air Corps in the spring. Often, William would drive the 130 miles from Shropshire to Bucklebury for the weekend. He and Kate enjoyed time together, mostly away from the public gaze. As his schedule was unpredictable, the paparazzi never knew when William was going to visit, and the locals were protective when they saw the couple in the village. They were able to drink and eat traditional pub lunches at the local Bladebone Inn without being disturbed, and William often shopped at the local Spar store for newspapers and Kate's favorite Haribo candy. Nothing was ever reported about them going about their daily lives, which was how they liked it. In the village we are very protective. There's a lot of camaraderie towards the Middletons, reported resident Linda Tillotson. Martin Fiddler, who owns the local butcher shop, added, "William and Kate are often here, but no one makes a deal of it and we leave them be. We have known the Middleton children for years and they are part of the village life." During the week, Kate immersed herself in her work and added another string to her bow, selling online advertising for the company. She cold-called companies, asking if they wanted to advertise on the site, and introduced herself as Catherine from Party Pieces. She also attended marketing fairs and used her new connections to boost the website's profile. She consulted Sir Richard Branson about a potential online partnership and was often in London for development meetings. She was still involved with Starlight and making regular visits to the Naomi House Hospice, and quite remarkably, the trips had still not been leaked to the press. It wasn't just her charity work that Kate was keeping below the radar. Both she and William were making an effort to maintain a low profile. They stunned their friends in May 2009 when they decided not to go to Fergus and Sandrine's wedding at the Château de Beaumois in the Loire Valley, despite having RSVP'd their attendance. According to one former St Andrews student, they cancelled at the last minute, citing William's work commitments. Kate had no real excuse for not being there, and their absence was the talk of the reception. William and Fergus were close friends, and it was out of character for him not to be at such an important occasion, especially when all of their friends from their university days were there. According to one source, William was worried that there would be too many guests they didn't know, while Kate apparently didn't want to have to face the inevitable question, when will you two be next? Not being seen and photographed together seemed to relieve the pressure because it gave the press less chance to speculate on the state of their romance. These days the couple rarely went out and had become rather reclusive, apart from attending the occasional polo match. The paparazzi were at the couple's favorite nightclubs in June, hoping to catch the prince celebrating his 27th birthday, but together with Harry and a couple of their friends, they were in Cornwall. Kate had found a private house to rent near the seaside town of Foy, so they spent the weekend surfing and enjoying pints in a local pub where they watched England play rugby against South Africa. There wasn't one photograph of the weekend in the newspapers. It was a great relief to the Queen and Prince Charles that William and Kate were going out less. Britain was going through its worst economic recession since the 1930s, and the Queen didn't think that partying at expensive nightclubs projected a favourable image for the royals. Her view was that the family should be setting an example, which did not mean running up expensive bar bills at Bouveries. There was also the thorny issue of privacy, which never seemed to go away. The Queen had recently asked her lawyers to consult the Press Complaints Commission about greater privacy for the royal family while they were in royal residence. The paparazzi staked out Sandringham House with alarming frequency, and she wanted this intrusion to end. William and Kate had been photographed shooting on the estate a number of times, and the Queen had not escaped the long lens, photographed some years previously, wringing the neck of a game bird. She had instructed a leading privacy lawyer to write to national newspaper editors explaining that action would be taken if they published pictures of the family and their friends on the royal estates. William backed his grandmother enthusiastically, but though the Queen was prepared to take legal action in order to protect the family, she also believed that her grandchildren had to toe the line. According to one royal source, the Queen cannot understand why William, Kate, and Harry choose to go to well-known nightclubs and then complain about being harassed. Her view is if you don't want to be photographed, don't go. Kate, who had never really enjoyed clubbing, was more than happy to pare down their social lives. Instead of nightclubs, they went to the theatre, slipping in once the house lights were dimmed, and they enjoyed dinners out at restaurants, where they made reservations under false names. The one negative effect of William and Kate ducking out of the limelight was that the media's attention switched to Kate's family. James was still recovering from the humiliating coverage of his 21st birthday party when he had suddenly found himself back under the spotlight in the summer of 2008. A picture of him dressed in one of his sister's dresses had been leaked on the internet, prompting taunts about his sexuality. Beer bottle in hand and red lipstick smeared across his face, James was clearly having fun with some university friends, but the photographs didn't seem so amusing when they were published in the Daily Mail beneath the headline, "Wild Side of Kate's Family." Shortly afterward, photographs of Pippa dancing in her underwear and wrapped up in a mini dress made from toilet paper were anonymously leaked to the newspapers. Carol was concerned that her family was coming under fire and that they did not have a public relations expert to guide them through the minefield of adverse publicity. Although Carol had generally taken care not to say anything in public, she had once let her guard down to a reporter from the Daily Telegraph during a day out at the races in November 2008. She told the journalist that she and her family felt vulnerable. "I'm not a celebrity and I don't want to be one. Celebrities have minders and PR people. I don't want a PR person and wouldn't want to have to pay to employ one. I haven't asked for all this," she complained. She also said that James had found himself in a difficult situation while trying to promote his cake business. James is very good with it all. He writes articles and has business projects which he wants to talk about. But then it's difficult when everything else is going on around him and people don't just want to know about his projects. Kate was doing well. Gary had given his nephew a $16,000 loan and James had not been shy about promoting the business, but when he baked 25 cakes for Hello magazine's anniversary edition, one of which featured an image of Princess Diana, royal eyebrows were raised. It was the sort of publicity the palace abhorred, and the newspapers accused James of cashing in on his royal connections. This, however, was not the only scandal to rock the family. The summer of 2009 saw the Middletons weather their greatest storm yet. On Sunday, July 19, the News of the World's headline read, "I called Wills AF." Kate couldn't believe it. Her Uncle G, as he was affectionately known, who had looked after her when she broke up with William, had been filmed at his Spanish home by undercover reporters. Described in the article as a braggart, he had been secretly filmed cutting up cocaine in his kitchen and rolling cannabis joints. Kate had never taken drugs, and she was equally horrified that Gary claimed to know how to organize prostitutes on the island. More worrying for Kate, he was incredibly loose-tongued about her and William's relationship and talked openly about the holiday they had enjoyed at La Maison de Bang Bang. He was reported to have claimed that they would be announcing their engagement that year and joked that he would be giving Kate away. The Middletons were devastated, but as always, they stuck together. According to Gary, Carol telephoned him that morning. The minute that story broke, Carol was on the phone apologizing to me on behalf of the family, specifically Kate, about me being suddenly thrust into the limelight, he later told the Mail on Sunday. It was a terrible time for the family, particularly for Gary, who had always had a love-hate relationship with his sister. "We are both headstrong and can bicker. But we are very close. We tease each other relentlessly," he said. Whereas Carol was family-oriented and sensible, Gary could be reckless. "The problem for Gary is that Carol never approved of Gary and his lifestyle," said a family member. Ultimately, Carol, who was in some ways more like a mother to Gary than a sister, forgave him and urged him to seek some help. Gary had been devastated when their mother, Dorothy, died. Perhaps that helped explain why he had fallen off the rails. He had made millions of dollars in IT recruitment, which afforded him his playboy lifestyle in Ibiza, but his marriage had collapsed. Carol and Mike have an amazing relationship. "They have nurtured 3 amazing kids," he said. "I should have taken more lessons from them on how to make the marriage work." Carol promised to help Gary, but first she needed to avoid the media storm and decided the best thing to do was to head to Mustique until the situation died down. William and Kate had actually been planning to go to Ibiza at the end of the summer, but in light of these events were compelled to cancel. They had no choice but to distance themselves from Uncle G for the time being. The palace declined to publicly comment on the story, but William was as supportive as he could be, and when he and Kate attended the summer wedding of his old friend Nicholas Van Cutsem, it was his turn to show the world he was standing by Kate. In the summer of 2009, they returned once again to Mustique, and at the end of August headed to Scotland for the bank holiday weekend. Although Kate had been to Balmoral many times, this trip was significant because it was the first time she had been invited to the main house while the Queen and Duke of Edinburgh were in residence. The news was greeted with much excitement in the press, with unconfirmed reports that the Queen wanted to lunch alone with Kate. Kate had not been invited to Her Majesty's 83rd birthday celebrations in June, but as she knew this was a matter of protocol, she did not view it as a snub. Until now, the Queen had met Kate only fleetingly at the wedding of Peter and Autumn Phillips, but she went out of her way to make her feel welcome, giving her permission to take pictures at Balmoral, a true gift to a photographer, with its turreted and Gothic-inspired architecture. As a woman who has lived her entire life in the public eye, the Queen rarely lets her guard down, and very few apart from her family and closest friends get to see the real Elizabeth. Now Kate was being granted an audience in a most intimate capacity. It was a generous move on the part of the Queen and an astute decision, given that the romance seemed to be very serious. During her summer stay at Balmoral, the Queen traditionally holds meetings with her most senior staff and her family, during which issues concerning the royal family, everything from overseas tours to marriages, birthdays, and state occasions, are discussed, and on this occasion, William was one of the subjects. Once known as the Way Ahead Group, started by the former Lord Chamberlain, the Earl of Ely, in 1994, its gatherings are essentially an in-house royal forum and have proved to be very successful for planning the future strategy for the House of Windsor. The Queen, the Duke of Edinburgh, and their children were all invited, and William and Harry were recently asked to attend. According to one senior aide, Philip traditionally chairs the committee, and there is always a twofold plan: the immediate future and the long term. The purpose of the summer 2009 gathering was to discuss the Queen and Philip's overseas tour schedule over the coming months. The Foreign Office had scheduled trips to New Zealand and Australia, Bermuda, and Canada, and the Queen felt that it was too much for her and the Duke of Edinburgh to take on, so she wanted to pass on some of her duties to younger members of the family. She was in robust health, but the 400 or so engagements the previous year had taken their toll on the Duke of Edinburgh, who had been in and out of the hospital. William had been developing his philanthropic role, and he and Harry were planning to launch the charitable foundation of Prince William and Prince Harry, which was to serve as an umbrella organization for all of their charity work. William had said he wanted to be more than just an ornament, and according to one well-placed courtier, the Queen felt now was the time to prove it. The Queen is aware she is not getting any younger, and she wants the new generation to start doing more. She sees Charles and now William as her substitutes, and she wants to get them off the bench, said the source. It appeared that a very subtle handover of power was being put in place. William was being lined up as a shadow king alongside his father for the very first time, and it was agreed that in the new year, he would go to Australia and New Zealand on behalf of the Queen. It was a momentous decision and a huge responsibility for the prince, as well as a key step in moving him to center stage alongside his father. It was an honor to be asked, and although he was excited to be representing his grandmother, it was a huge pressure and responsibility. William knew that it was a sign of things to come. Although his military career afforded him some relief from becoming a full-time royal, he would be expected to carry out more duties on behalf of his grandparents in the near future. His grandmother's Diamond Jubilee celebrations were already under discussion, and there was a strategy in place at the palace not to overburden the Queen with official engagements. Although there was no suggestion of Kate joining William, there were murmurs about creating a princess-in-waiting role for her. The Queen was pleased to hear that Kate was now so closely associated with Starlight. As well as her private visits to children's hospices, she was working on the committee for the Maggie and Rose Art for Starlight campaign, which involved running art workshops for some of Starlight's children at the Maggie and Rose Children's Playgroup in Kensington. A number of leading artists had volunteered their time to teach the children, so Kate had helped organize the workshops. She was also involved in planning a gala dinner at the end of September to launch an exhibition of some of the children's paintings at the Saatchi Gallery. On the night itself, she walked up the red carpet with William. "We didn't know William was coming until about 6 p.m., when the sniffer dogs were brought in," recalled Neil Swan. "It was absolutely wonderful to have him there." It was an important night for Kate, and it had meant a lot to her that William and her family were supporting her, though Carol nearly upstaged both of her daughters in a stunning off-the-shoulder coral minidress. Party Pieces had donated a children's birthday party as one of the lots in the auction, but the greatest excitement was that William and Kate had arrived together. Even at a charity event, they were wary about being photographed together, and they refused to pose for the cameras. Society photographer Dominic O'Neill was asked to stay away from the event. "I got a note from the Prince's office saying that Kate wouldn't attend the dinner if I was there," he recalled. "She was upset that I'd photographed her flat on her back at a charity roller skating disco because the pictures had made the front page. There's definitely been a tightening up over the past year, and I suspect it is all preparation for a royal wedding." But 2009 came to a close without an announcement. It was a continual cause of consternation for Carol, who was worried that her daughter was nearing 30 and still not engaged. She enjoyed a close relationship with William, and just before Christmas she had a quiet word when he came to visit. According to one family friend, she told him she was worried that an engagement might never happen. Carol felt like she was treading water as far as her daughter's relationship was concerned. She put some pressure on William to let the family know where it was all leading. William spoke with her and assured her that the relationship was very much on track and that there would be an engagement soon. According to the source, they also discussed the longer-term future and children. William said it was all on the cards and that when it did happen, Carol and Michael would be very much a part of their lives, and the lives of their own children. Carol trusted William and put her faith in him. George Brown, who remained in touch with Michael and Carol, recalled it was a condition when they got married that they would be a part of the grandchildren's lives. "Carol's a natural with children, and she will be a wonderful grandmother, and I imagine she'll want to be very involved." Once again William and Kate spent Christmas apart, with the Middletons going to Restormel Manor, a holiday home in Cornwall. It was a relaxing, uneventful few days, that is, until Kate was photographed by a paparazzo while she played tennis on Christmas morning. When William heard, he was incandescent, considering it a flagrant breach of the PCC ruling that Kate was a private individual who should be left alone. He urged her to take legal action, and several months later, Kate won a record $15,000 in damages for breach of privacy. It was a warning shot to the press. Kate was not prepared to have her privacy invaded, and she had the weight of the royal lawyers to help fight her case. By the start of 2010, William was one step closer to flying Sea King helicopters. He had graduated from flying a single-engine Squirrel helicopter to a double-engine Griffin. Kate had jokingly taken to calling him Top Gun. On January 15, she was at RAF Shawberry to see his father present him with his latest flying badge. It was a poignant moment for father and son. Charles had been awarded his wings in the very same hall. William had been told he would be posted to RAF Valley, a search and rescue base on the island of Anglesey in Wales in the new year, which would be his new home for some time. By now Kate had attended 3 graduation ceremonies, prompting royal correspondents to ask, "Why is Will still flying solo?" At the palace, courtiers were pondering the very same question. Planning had already commenced for Prince Philip's 90th birthday in June 2011, the Queen's Diamond Jubilee, and the 2012 London Olympics. No dates were being discussed for a royal wedding. however, because William hadn't given any indication as to when it might happen. His next period of training at RAF Valley officially ended in September 2010, which seemed an opportune time to get engaged before he embarked on a full-time flying career. Their closest friends had privately put bets on a 20 being debated on the other side of the world. William had flown to New Zealand 24 hours after graduating, and there was a great sense of excitement over how his 5-day-long tour would be received. The Prince had been warned about the Republican movement in Australia, but crowds of thousands turned up at every event to see him. Dressed in his chinos and an open-necked shirt rather than a formal suit, William chatted happily to well-wishers and seemed entirely comfortable conducting walkabouts. With his good looks and natural charm, it was hard not to think of Diana, although William insisted he wasn't anywhere near her level when he visited a children's hospital in Wellington. The reception he received in Sydney was equally warm. When he arrived at Government House in Melbourne, he was swamped by female fans carrying banners with the message "We love Wills." He was asked by one woman when he planned to marry Kate, and he teased, "As I keep saying, wait and see." It was a playful and somewhat telling response. Until now, William had never commented on the subject of marriage in public. When he returned to Britain, William moved into his new home, a rather basic single room in the officers' accommodation at RAF Valley. That Easter, Kate and William holidayed with her family at the French ski resort Courchevel, prompting royal observers to speculate once again about an engagement. The couple was photographed kissing at a mountaintop restaurant and later, chasing each other down the slopes on snowmobiles. According to a ski instructor who sat at a table near the group during lunch one day, William referred to Michael as Dad. Prince William and Kate looked like a honeymoon couple. He held her hand under the table, stroked her hair, and kissed her cheek, instructor Mere Visser told the Daily Mail. William was clearly very close to Kate's father. Every time he spoke to him, William replied, "Yes, Dad." Everyone in their group was laughing at this, it was clearly jokey. But William did look like part of the family. According to one family friend, it was a private joke emanating from William's pledge to Carol. Kate and William had decided that on their return from Courchevel, William would move out of his quarters at RAF Valley so that they could live together. With permission from his head of command, they rented a farmhouse on the Bedorgan estate, owned by Lord and Lady Myrick. The house, on the southwestern part of the island of Anglesey, near the Irish Sea, was only a 20-minute drive from the RAF base. William had been told that, providing he passed his exams, he would be staying on at RAF Valley, news that pleased them both. The island was a perfect retreat from the paparazzi and incredibly beautiful. The farmhouse was surrounded by mountains and beautiful countryside, and was only a short walk from a small beach. This part of Wales could potentially be their home for at least 2 more years while William carried out a full tour of duty. Kate had moved all her belongings in by the beginning of June, but because the press was busy following William and Harry on their very first joint overseas tour to South Africa, no one noticed. William travelled home on his birthday and much was made of him turning 28, which was, after all, the year he predicted he might marry. Although there was still no official announcement, the reality was that behind the closed doors of their new Anglesey home, William and Kate were already living the life of a married couple. By the end of June, Kate had given up working for Party Pieces and was immersing herself in her new life. Anglesey was as normal as it was ever going to be for them both. The press agreed with the palace not to photograph the couple's home because it was deemed a security risk. The farmhouse was well protected and could only be accessed by a private drive, making it virtually impossible to photograph anyway. As at St. Andrews, the locals on the remote island protected the couple, so they were able to go about their daily lives in relative peace. Since Kate's successful legal action in which she won substantial damages, newspaper editors were far more cautious about the pictures they published. Their new home was idyllic, and with William at work, Kate filled her days taking photographs, walking on the beach, and compiling an exhibition of her work, having had the idea to stage a photographic exhibition and raise money for charity. Often, her only company was William's protection officers, an always entertaining group. Some, like Chris Tarr, had looked after the prince since he was a little boy and were full of stories. Michael and Carol visited from time to time, as did Pippa, and they all noted how happy Kate was in this phase of her life. Although they had lived together as students at St. Andrews, this time was different because it was just the two of them, a real road test for marriage. And it was proving to be a success. William was, once again, being granted a privilege none of his predecessors had enjoyed. His father had spent most of his bachelor years refusing to settle down with one woman. He had proposed to Diana after a year-long courtship, but he never got the opportunity to live with her before they married. William and Kate, however, knew each other's flaws and strengths, but the most important thing was that they knew they worked well as a team. Forever scarred by the pain of his parents' divorce, it was essential to William that when he married, it would be for life. Divorce had dogged the royal family for too long. From the abdication of Edward VII in 1936 that had nearly ruined the monarchy to the more recent divorces of Diana and Charles, as well as Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, unhappy marriages threatened to seriously unhinge an otherwise solid establishment. Before William asked Kate to marry him, he wanted to be sure it was what she really wanted. By living together, Kate could decide whether it was, and as William later recalled, back out if it wasn't. William graduated as a fully qualified search and rescue force helicopter pilot in September 2010 and joined No. 22 Squadron, Sea Flight. It was a major achievement for the prince. He was now fully qualified to fly Sea King 3 Malawian Quachars helicopters, which meant that he would be carrying out dangerous rescue missions and essentially saving lives. He spent the next few weeks familiarizing himself with the terrain and his crew before carrying out his first shift, during which he rescued an oil rig worker who had suffered a heart attack at sea. It was a stressful but exciting job, and for the prince, incredibly rewarding. William was trained to fly in extreme weather conditions and was responsible for steadying the aircraft, while lost climbers and casualties were winched to safety. With his training completed, William and Kate were back in the spotlight as rumors circulated in the press once again that their long-awaited engagement would soon be announced. There was a flurry of activity to suggest that this time an engagement really was imminent. The Mail on Sunday revealed that the Royal Mint, which must secure the Queen's permission before manufacturing any new coinage, had started preparations for a commemorative coin to celebrate a royal wedding. The palace claimed to have no knowledge of the coin, but for the first time, royal representatives changed tack on their stance about a possible engagement. Usually, speculation was accompanied by a denial, but on this occasion an aide seemed to suggest that there would be an announcement. "We don't know the date, only William and Kate know," he said. "I don't expect we will be told until the last minute." William plays his cards very close to his chest. That's his nature. The following year seemed a good bet for a royal wedding. The year 2012 was likely to be dominated by the Queen's Diamond Jubilee and the Olympics. Bookmakers across the country stopped taking bets on a 2011 wedding after it was reported that senior courtiers had been in touch with Westminster Abbey about a possible ceremony. Ironically, it was the madness of this media frenzy that provided the distraction that enabled William and Kate to slip out of the country to Lua Downs in Kenya. However, before he escaped, William paid a visit to his grandmother at Buckingham Palace, deliberately arriving by motorbike so as not to be followed or seen. In this private visit, he asked the Queen's permission to procure a piece of jewelry from her collection. And so it was that no one, apart from his grandmother, knew that William was traveling to Kenya with his late mother's diamond and sapphire engagement ring hidden away in the depths of his knapsack.